The letter sat unopened on Marcus Hayes' desk, its crisp navy seal glaring like a warning. He'd stared at it for 10 minutes, heart pounding, knowing it held the verdict on his promotion to lieutenant commander. A rank he'd bled for, sweated for, dreamed of since he was a kid in Oakland watching ships cut through the San Francisco Bay. But the whispers in the corridors of Naval Base San Diego already told him what it said. Denied. Marcus, 30, lean and sharp in his pressed uniform, ran a hand over his close-cropped hair, trying to steady his breath. He'd heard the rumors, snide comments about his lifestyle, the way some senior officers avoided his gaze after he'd come out 2 years ago. The Navy had changed, they said, but not enough to let a black gay man rise too fast. He tore open the envelope, the words blurring as his eyes caught the phrase. Promotion Board recommendation. Not approved. No explanation, just a cold bureaucratic gut punch. The reason wasn't written, but he knew it wasn't his record. Spotless deployments, commendations for leadership, a silver star for pulling a wounded sailor from a burning deck off Yemen. It was who he loved, Ethan, the soft-spoken barista who waited for him at their small apartment every night. The office door swung open, and Commander Daniel Warren stepped in, his silver hair catching the morning light through the window. At 45, Daniel carried the weight of a career built on discipline and discretion. His own truth buried for decades under "don't ask, don't tell." He'd only come out last year after the policy's repeal, and even then only to a few trusted colleagues. "Hayes," he said, voice low but firm. "You read it." Marcus nodded, shoving the letter across the desk. Daniel's blue eyes scanned it, his jaw tightening. "This is bullshit," he muttered, tossing it down. "You're one of the best officers I've got." Marcus leaned back, forcing a bitter smile. "Best don't matter when they're looking for reasons to say no, sir." He'd seen it before, on the streets of his childhood, in the sidelong glances at officer training. Being black was one strike. Being gay was another. Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead, he pulled a chair close, sitting across from Marcus like they were equals, not commander and subordinate. "You're not done here, Marcus. Not by a long shot." The base hummed outside, drills, shouts, the distant roar of a jet. San Diego's sun burned through the window, casting long shadows across the room. Marcus thought of Ethan, who'd kissed him goodbye that morning, whispering, "You've got this." He didn't, not yet, but Daniel's presence, steady and unyielding, sparked something in him, a flicker of fight. He wasn't just a sailor. He was a man who'd survived too much to fold now. Over the next week, the denial ate at Marcus. He threw himself into his duties, training new recruits, overseeing maintenance on the USS Lake Erie, but the weight of it followed him. Whispers grew louder. A senior officer, Captain Hargrove, a hardliner with a reputation for traditional values, had been on the promotion board. Marcus overheard him at the officers' mess, muttering about standards and unit cohesion. The words stung, but Marcus kept his head high, his uniform impeccable, his orders crisp. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him crack. Ethan noticed the change. At their apartment in Hillcrest, a colorful pocket of San Diego where rainbow flags hung proudly, he'd catch Marcus staring out the window, silent. "Talk to me," Ethan urged one night, his hazel eyes soft but searching. He was 28, wiry, with a mop of brown curls and a smile that could disarm anyone. Marcus sighed, pulling Ethan close. "It's not just the promotion. It's knowing they're judging me for us." Ethan's hand tightened on his. "Then show them who you are, Marcus. All of you." The idea hit Marcus like a wave. He wasn't going to let Hargrove or the board define him. He'd earned that rank and he'd fight for it. Not just for himself, but for every sailor who'd been told they didn't belong. He started digging, requesting records, filing appeals. The Navy's bureaucracy was a maze, but Marcus was relentless, spending nights poring over regulations, emailing legal advisors, building a case. He wasn't alone. Daniel became his quiet ally, slipping him personnel files, pointing him to obscure Navy policies on equal opportunity. "You're not fighting a man," Daniel warned. "You're fighting a system, but systems break." One evening, Marcus found a note slipped under his office door. An anonymous tip about Hargrove's bias, citing a meeting where he'd openly questioned Marcus' fitness based on his personal choices. It wasn't enough to prove discrimination, but it was a crack in the wall. Marcus shared it with Daniel, who leaned back in his chair, a slow grin spreading. "This," he said, tapping the note, "is leverage." They began strategizing, mapping out a plan to take the fight higher, to the Admiral's office if they had to. By the end of the month, Marcus was exhausted but unyielding. He stood before his crew, leading a briefing on a new missile defense system, his voice steady despite the sleepless nights. Afterward, a young ensign, a Latina named Sofia Alvarez, approached him. "Sir, I heard about the board. It's not right." Her eyes held the same fire Marcus felt. "Keep fighting," she said. "Some of us, we need you to." Marcus nodded, a lump in his throat. This wasn't just his fight anymore. The base was alive with tension as Marcus pushed forward. Every morning, he walked past Hargrove's office, feeling the older man's eyes on him, cold and assessing. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd learned long ago how to carry himself under scrutiny. Back straight, shoulders square, eyes forward. But inside, doubt gnawed. What if the system was too big, too entrenched? What if his appeal went nowhere and he was stuck, a lieutenant forever, his career capped by prejudice? Daniel kept him grounded. They met after hours in Daniel's office, poring over documents under the flicker of a desk lamp. Daniel's career was a roadmap of survival. Decades of hiding his own identity, navigating a Navy that didn't want men like him. "I stayed quiet too long," he admitted one night, his voice raw. "Watched good sailors get pushed out. Not you, Marcus. Not on my watch." His words carried weight, not just as a commander but as someone who'd lived the same fear, the same secrecy. Marcus' appeal gained traction. A JAG officer, Lieutenant Commander Priya Patel, took an interest after Daniel tipped her off. Priya was sharp, no-nonsense, with a reputation for sniffing out injustice. She met Marcus at a coffee shop off base, away from prying eyes. "You've got a case," she said, scanning the anonymous note about Hargrove. "But it's thin. We need more testimony, emails, anything that shows bias explicitly." Marcus nodded, his mind racing. He'd have to dig deeper, maybe even confront Hargrove directly. Back at the apartment, Ethan was his anchor. One night, as they cooked dinner, Ethan chopping peppers with precision, Marcus stirring a pot of chili, Ethan suggested a risky move. "What if you go public? Not loud, but strategic. Post on X, maybe. People are talking about this stuff now." Marcus hesitated. The Navy wasn't kind to those who aired dirty laundry. But Ethan's idea lingered. Social media was a wildfire, and Marcus knew how to spark one without burning himself. He started small, posting on X about leadership and fairness, never naming Hargrove but hinting at obstacles for qualified officers. The post caught traction, retweets from sailors, veterans, even civilians. A hashtag Navy Equality began trending locally. Marcus didn't expect the response, but it gave him leverage. Sailors started sharing their own stories, discrimination, unfair denials. One message came from a retired chief petty officer who'd served with Hargrove years ago, claiming he'd made similar comments about undesirable officers. Marcus forwarded it to Priya. Hargrove wasn't blind to the noise. At a staff meeting, he called Marcus out, voice dripping with false concern. Lieutenant Hayes, I hear you're stirring things up online. Care to explain? The room went silent, every officer watching. Marcus met Hargrove's gaze. Just sharing my perspective, sir. Thought that's what free speech was for. A few chuckles broke the tension, but Hargrove's face hardened. Marcus knew he'd drawn blood. Daniel warned him to tread carefully. Hargrove's got friends upstairs. You push too hard, he'll push back. But Marcus couldn't stop. He met with Sophia and other junior officers, quietly building a network of support. They shared stories, Sophia's own struggles as a Latina in a male-dominated field, another officer's fear of coming out. Marcus realized this was bigger than his promotion. It was about changing the culture. Priya uncovered a goldmine. An email from Hargrove to another board member, vaguely worded but implying Marcus' personal life, raised concerns. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was close. Priya filed a formal complaint on Marcus' behalf, accusing the board of bias. The base buzzed with gossip, and Marcus felt the weight of every stare. Some officers avoided him. Others, like Sophia, left notes of encouragement on his desk. Ethan kept him sane, dragging him to karaoke nights in Hillcrest or quiet walks along Coronado Beach. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan slipped his hand into Marcus. "You're not just fighting for you," he said. "You're fighting for us. For everyone like us." Marcus kissed him, the ocean breeze cool on their faces. He felt stronger, not just for himself but for the life they were building. By the time the appeal reached the Admiral's desk, Marcus had a small army behind him. Junior officers, a few sympathetic seniors, even a civilian advocate group that had caught wind of his story on X. The pressure was mounting, and Hargrove's influence was starting to crack. Marcus knew the next step would be the hardest, a face-to-face with the Admiral. The Admiral's office was a fortress of oak and brass, overlooking the San Diego harbor. Marcus stood at attention, his heart hammering as Admiral Lauren Chen, a woman with a reputation for fairness but zero tolerance for drama, reviewed his file. Her dark eyes flicked between the papers and Marcus, unreadable. "Lieutenant Hayes," she began, her voice calm but cutting. "You've made quite a stir. Explain why I shouldn't see this as insubordination." Marcus swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Ma'am, I'm not here to disrespect the chain of command. I'm here because my promotion was denied for reasons unrelated to my performance." He laid out his case, his record, the anonymous tip, Hargrove's email. Chun listened, her face a mask. When he finished, she leaned back. "You're accusing a senior officer of bias. That's a serious charge. You have proof." Priya had prepped him for this. Marcus handed over the email and a compiled list of testimonies from other officers, including Sophia's. Chun skimmed them, her expression unchanged. "I'll review this," she said. "But understand, Lieutenant, the Navy doesn't bend to public pressure. If you're wrong, this ends your career." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. He'd rolled the dice. Outside, Daniel was waiting, his face tense. "How'd it go?" Marcus shrugged. "She didn't throw me out. That's something." Daniel clapped his shoulder. "You're braver than I was at your age. Keep your head up." Marcus wanted to believe him, but the waiting was torture. Days passed with no word from Chen's office. The base felt like a pressure cooker, every glance loaded with judgment or support. Ethan kept Marcus grounded, sensing when the stress was too much. One night, he dragged Marcus to a local drag show in Hillcrest, the bar packed with laughter and glitter. Marcus, usually reserved, found himself cheering as a queen lip-synced to Whitney Houston. Ethan leaned close, whispering, "This is who we are. Don't let them take that away." Marcus grinned, stealing a kiss. For a moment the weight lifted. Back at the base, Hargrove doubled down. He pulled Marcus into a closed-door meeting, his face red with barely contained anger. "You think you can smear me and walk away?" he hissed. "I've served this Navy longer than you've been alive." Marcus held his ground. "With respect, sir, I'm not smearing anyone. I'm asking for what I earned." Hargrove's eyes narrowed, but Marcus saw a flicker of doubt. The old man wasn't untouchable. Priya's complaint was gaining traction. Another officer came forward, a closeted gay ensign who'd overheard Hargrove's comments during the board review. His testimony was anonymous, but it corroborated the email. Marcus felt a surge of hope, tempered by fear. If Chen ruled against him, he'd be branded a troublemaker, his career dead in the water. Sophia and the other junior officers kept the momentum going, organizing discreet meetings to rally support. They called themselves the Anchor Crew, a nod to the Navy's symbol of strength. Marcus was floored by their courage, young sailors risking their own careers to back him. One night, Sophia slipped him a USB drive with recorded audio from a board meeting, where Hargrove's bias was unmistakable. "This could change everything," she whispered. Marcus hugged her, gratitude overwhelming him. The tide was turning, but Marcus knew it wasn't over. He and Daniel spent late nights strategizing, preparing for every outcome. Daniel shared his own story, years of hiding, a partner he'd lost to silence and shame. "I didn't fight back then," he said, "but you are. That's why I'm here." Marcus realized Daniel wasn't just his commander. He was a mentor, a mirror of what Marcus could become. As the Admiral's decision loomed, Marcus posted one last time on X. "Fighting for what's right isn't easy, but it's worth it. Navy equality." The post went viral, shared by thousands, including a prominent veterans group. The pressure was now on Chen, and Marcus knew she felt it. He just hoped it was enough. The call came at 0600, a curt summons to Chen's office. Marcus dressed in his service dress blues, every crease perfect, his silver star gleaming on his chest. Ethan watched him, eyes soft with pride and worry. "You're gonna knock this out," he said, adjusting Marcus' tie. Marcus kissed him, lingering a moment longer than usual. "For us," he whispered. Chen's office felt different this time. Less like a courtroom, more like a crossroads. She stood by the window, the harbor sparkling behind her. "Lieutenant Hayes," she began, "I've reviewed your appeal, the testimonies, the evidence." Her voice was steady, but Marcus caught a flicker of something. Empathy, maybe. Captain Hargrove's conduct was inappropriate. His comments influenced the board's decision. "That's unacceptable." Marcus' heart leapt, but he stayed silent, waiting. Chun continued, "I'm recommending your promotion to lieutenant commander, effective immediately. But understand, this doesn't erase the scrutiny you'll face. You've made waves, and not everyone's happy." Marcus nodded, relief crashing over him like a tide. "Thank you, ma'am." Chen's eyes softened. "You remind me of my brother. He was gay, served in the 90s. Never got to be himself. You're changing that, Hayes." She dismissed him, but her words lingered, a quiet validation of everything he'd fought for. The news spread like wildfire. Sophia and the Anchor Crew threw an impromptu celebration in the mess hall, their cheers echoing. Hargrove was quietly reassigned to a desk job in Norfolk. His influence diminished. Marcus felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only relief that justice had tipped the scales. Daniel called Marcus to his office that afternoon. The older man stood, holding a lieutenant commander's badge, its gold catching the light. "I'm pinning this on you myself," he said, voice thick with emotion. Marcus stood tall, his chest tight as Daniel affixed the badge. Their eyes met, a shared understanding passing between them. Two gay men, one who'd hidden, one who'd fought, standing together in a navy that was slowly changing. Marcus posted a photo of the moment on X, the badge gleaming, Navy equality trending again. Messages poured in. Support, gratitude, stories from others who'd faced the same battles. Ethan framed the photo, hanging it in their apartment. "This is our victory," he said, pulling Marcus close. But the fight wasn't over. Marcus knew the badge was just a start. The Navy was a beast, slow to change, and he'd made enemies. Still, he felt lighter, stronger. He wasn't just a sailor anymore. He was a symbol, a voice for those who'd been silenced. Marcus' new rank came with new responsibilities. Leading a larger team, overseeing operations on the USS Lake Erie. He dove in, determined to prove Chen's faith in him. But the whispers didn't stop. Some officers respected him more. Others kept their distance, their silence louder than words. Marcus didn't care. He had his crew, his commander, and Ethan. Sophia became his right hand, her sharp mind and fierce loyalty anchoring the team. They trained hard, their unit earning praise for precision during a Pacific exercise. Marcus saw himself in Sophia's ambition, her refusal to bend under pressure. He mentored her, just as Daniel had mentored him, passing the torch. Off-duty, Marcus and Ethan hosted dinners for the anchor crew, their apartment filled with laughter and stories. Ethan, ever the heart of the group, made everyone feel at home. One night, Sophia raised a glass. "To Marcus, who showed us what's possible." The room erupted, and Marcus felt a warmth he hadn't known he needed. Daniel, too, was changing. He started speaking openly about his own journey, mentoring younger officers who were scared to come out. He and Marcus became a quiet force, advocating for policy changes, better protections, fairer boards. It was slow, but every step felt like a victory. Marcus never forgot Hargrove's face, the anger in his eyes. He knew others like him were still out there, waiting for a chance to push back. But Marcus was ready. He'd faced the system and won. Not just for himself, but for Ethan, for Daniel, for Sophia, for every sailor who deserved to be seen. A year later, Marcus stood on the deck of the USS Lake Erie, the Pacific stretching endless before him. He was Lieutenant Commander Hayes now, his badge a hard-won symbol of resilience. The ship was headed for a joint exercise in Japan, and Marcus was leading the mission. His crew trusted him, their respect earned through sweat and honesty. Ethan had started a new job, managing a coffee shop in Hillcrest, his dreams growing as boldly as Marcus. They talked about the future, maybe a house, maybe more. Marcus wasn't afraid anymore. He'd faced the worst and come out stronger. Daniel retired that spring, his farewell ceremony packed with officers young and old. Marcus gave the speech, his voice steady as he honored the man who'd pinned his badge, who'd shown him what courage looked like. Daniel hugged him afterward, whispering, "Keep fighting, Marcus. You're the future." The Navy wasn't perfect. Bias still lingered, and Marcus knew he'd face more battles. But he also knew he wasn't alone. The anchor crew was growing, their voices louder, their stories shared. On X, Navy equality still trended, a beacon for change. As the ship cut through the waves, Marcus stood tall, the wind in his face. He thought of Ethan, of Daniel, of every sailor who'd been told they didn't belong. This was his fight, their fight, and it was far from over. But for now, he'd earned his place, badge and all, and no one could take that away.